Hello and welcome to the channel. I am Abdul Wahid and I'm building a 20-foot catamaran sailboat in my garage. And in this episode I show you additional work on the starboard hull that I'm sitting at right here. The port hull is behind me. And in this video we're bringing this starboard hull up to the same level of completion as the port hull. Other than some sanding, this will bring this up, and eventually I'll be able to stand this hull up as well. So follow along and I'll show you all the details of the construction of the starboard hull. All right, let's go. Here are all of the bulkhead side supports epoxied in place. And I'm probably not going to show every single step on this hull because a lot of it's going to be very similar to the port hull, but I will try to show things that I'm doing different or some new learnings or some new techniques as I come across them. And one of the things I want to show you is how I'm determining the marks on the hull bottom for the bulkheads. And let me show you that right now. I'm getting the bulkheads epoxied in place, and I'm really glad that I put all of the bulkhead support pieces in because I struggled on the previous hull for clamping these bulkheads in place along here, and with those support pieces in place I'm able to put some wood in here and just kind of wedge it in place to hold the bottom edge of this bulkhead up against its support piece back here. And I did that for all of these bulkheads and it worked out really well. The stringer for the inside hull bottom is now epoxied in place. It's doubled up, and I did this one a little bit different than the other hull. On the previous hull I glued in just the bottom stringer and then clamped the top stringer in while I used chisels to angle the edge down. And in this case I went ahead and glued both of them in, and it's going to be really difficult to try to angle just this top stringer because it's already glued here onto the edge of the hull bottom. If I was to try to do that, I would probably have to take a saw and make a cut, a shallow cut along this edge, and then I could trim this down with the chisel to the right angle. And I might still do that. I'm still thinking about it. Or, you know, I might just bevel this entire edge down, including this hull bottom, and then when I go to put the hull side on, I would bring the hull side all the way to this surface, the bottom edge of the hull bottom. The total width of the hull would be the same if I did that, and it might save a lot of complexity trying to angle just this stringer and keeping the hull bottom in place. I'm still trying to decide if that's the route I'm going to go or not. So I might try it and see how difficult it is, and if not, I'll just bevel the entire edge. So chiseling this out might actually work. I've started a little bit here, just taking the chisel and pushing it in like this, wiggling it a little bit. I don't really want to work with a hammer or anything because I don't want to, you know, I want to take this nice and easy. And it seems to be working. So this is what I'm trying to take out right here and bevel this edge just of the stringer, and if possible leave the whole bottom untouched. Well, I decided to just use the chisel for the entire stringer and leave this hull bottom as it was, and you can see a bit of an angle there. Now this angle's steeper here, and towards the front there's almost no angle at all. And the idea is that the hull side planking will be able to sit here like this, and if there's any little gap there like that, then that'll just be filled in with some thickened epoxy. But the idea is that the planking will go along here and will rest up against the hull bottom and will fit right here in this angle. Once the initial shaping is done, it's not too difficult to just come along with a sharp chisel and trim off the wood like this to get it to the right angle. And I do this by hand without using a mallet or hammer or anything, because I want to just get the extra control. And as long as the chisel is sharp, it's not very difficult, a bit time consuming, but I'm taking very shallow cuts right now. I could speed this up by cutting a little bit deeper. And I probably had to sharpen the chisel probably, I think, twice in the process of cutting this entire edge in order to keep it sharp. It's time for the bridge deck stringer, and in order to do this, I start here at the water line, which is right here, and go up 400 millimeters. I made a mark right there, and then I use the square to go straight up, and I marked this line right here, and then I took a couple pieces of the cut-off stringer and lined it up with this corner right here, so it'll stick out a little bit right here, and then I drew the outline so that the 400 millimeters will be the top edge of the stringer. And now it's time to cut these out and dry fit the stringer in place. The bridge deck stringer is in place, and I also put another stringer at the top edge there at the bow. I'll show you that one. This is the stringer, and this is the one that's composed of 6 pieces of wood, so 3 on each side. And I do that because there is a curve here, and there's not much to support this. It's not like this stringer that has the full length to be able to hold that curve in place. This will eventually get cut off right here, and I want to maintain that curve, so having 3 pieces of wood laminated is a good way to maintain a curve. And both of those come up to the front end there. And the next one to put on is going to be this top, the top of the deck stringer, or the roof, just like we have here on the porthole. I'm dry fitting the cabin top stringer in place, and there's a few important things to think about. One, the bulkheads need to be straight and not bent, so that's why I've clamped some 2x4s to the edge to keep them from bending this way or that way. I want them to be perfectly straight going out there. And when I dry fit this, the curve of the cabin top just seemed a bit flatter than I remember here on the other hull. So I measured here from the top hull stringer up to the cabin top stringer, and it was about 1 inch shorter than the curve here. So in other words, instead of curving up as much down here, it was a little bit flatter. So I took and just put some boards here and put a clamp there to just push that stringer up a bit so that the distance here is the same. And then here on bulkhead 2, a similar situation. I need to clamp a board onto the side to make sure that the bulkhead is straight, and I do the same thing here for bulkhead number 1 with this board clamped onto the side. And then up here at the top, I have this complicated arrangement of clamps to try to hold that at an angle. And like I said, this is all dry fit for now, and I just want to make sure that it comes to the right point here at the front, and that the curve is correct. So now that everything's in place and I've marked everything, I'll go ahead and put a little bit of epoxy to just tab it in place onto the bulkheads and the front point up there. And there will eventually be 4 of these pieces of wood that form this cabin top stringer. The first one is just going in place and is just being epoxied onto the bulkheads by itself, just to get the curve right and make sure that it's in place properly. And also it will give me something to clamp onto better and easier here at the front once this stringer is in place and the epoxy is cured. All 4 pieces of the cabin top stringer are in place, and I glued the last 2 pieces together. And I actually used for the first time I used the extra slow hardener to give myself a little bit more working time on that. I'm glad I did, and it sure did take a long time to set up. So, and it was kind of soft. The epoxy was soft for several days after that. But it's all cured up now, and I'm moving on to the extra support pieces. For instance, getting the support piece that goes in here on all of these bulkheads, and I'm doing it a little bit differently for this hull, and by that I'm cutting all these pieces at once and dry fitting them in place. So I've got probably about 15 or so of these little support boards to go in, and they're all cut and shaped and ready to be epoxied into place. I'm getting ready to mix up the epoxy, and I'll be using the West System epoxy and the 206 slow hardener, and I'm using the 403 microfibers to thicken the epoxy. And I just needed to open up a new pack of the filler, and I thought I would show you that it's nice that there is no air in the packing. So a lot of places will not fill things all the way up, and as you can see, West Marine, they definitely fill up everything right to the very top. So it's always kind of nice to see that. All of the support pieces for the starboard hull are now in place. These are the support boards for the flotation compartment, and another flotation compartment. And I have these bulkhead supports all glued in as well. And this hull is now at the same level of completion as the port hull, except for the sanding. And by that I mean that I need to sand these at an angle. So, you know, you can see there's a gap here, so this stringer will get sanded down. I might have made a very tiny mistake here, but it's okay, it'll work out fine. These support pieces should have been glued on a little bit above the bulkhead, because there's a very slight angle down at this point. So that means when I sand this smooth and put the hull planking on, there's going to be a small gap here, but that can be filled in with some thickened epoxy. There's a little bit more of a gap that will be here on this support board, but again, it's not much, and it can be filled in with some thickened epoxy, so that'll be good. And coming along here, we have the support pieces for bulkheads, well, the two bulkhead 3, I'm calling them 3A and 3B. And that would be this piece here and that one. And so other than the sanding, this is now equivalent to the port hull over here. And I'm trying to think what to do next. And I need to put in eventually, and I might as well do it now, there needs to be a triangular support piece right here at the bottom end of the bow. So it'll come along something like that. So I need to put in glue in a large piece here, and I haven't done that for the other hull, but I'll cut these out and get them ready and glue this one in, and then for the other one. The other thing that I need to do, I haven't done this for either hull yet, is I need to put fillets or put a cove in along all of the inside wood here on the hull, and that will prepare this for some fiberglass inside. Now the other thing that I could do is, you know, forego the fiberglass and just coat this all with epoxy, and I might do that. I don't know if it actually needs a fiberglass coating inside. If I just coat this all with epoxy, maybe a couple layers of epoxy, that might be enough. With the coves and the extra epoxy, I might just do that, because one of the things that I would have to do is, I would put a cove here to take these inside corners out here and down here, but there's a sharp angle on all of these support woods pieces. This would all have to be sanded down if I wanted to get fiberglass to be able to smoothly go over all of this. So we'll see. I might just do it here on the bottoms. Yeah, so I'm still trying to figure that out, how I want to do that. But for the pieces here at the corners, what I think I'm going to do is I actually have two pieces of Western red cedar here. They're here under the plastic, and I think these might be 2x8s. They're 10 feet long. Both of them are 10 feet long, and I think I'm going to use these for the fore and aft beams. And I only need, the sailboat's only going to be 8.5 feet wide, so I have 1.5 foot extra on each one. And here at the bow end, because it curves up, because this curves up here, you know, there's all this distance here, that means that the length of the beam that goes between the two bows really only needs to be about 8 feet long. So I've got about 2 feet that I can cut off of one of those Western red cedar beams, and I think I'm going to take that, put 1 foot in here and 1 foot for the other hull, and use that, and then still have an 8 foot long section and a 10 foot long section. And the 8 foot long 2x8 will go here at the bow end for the bow beam, and I think I'm going to put that right underneath these two stringers, so it'll come along here like this and come up this way. So that will be the bow beam, and the other one that'll remain 10 feet long, I can put that, trim that off a little bit, and that will be the aft beam. And that, I believe, I have to refer to the plans, but I believe that will glue up right on this bulkhead number 6 and will span the two hulls. Other than that, the other thing that will be spanning the hulls is here at bulkheads 2 and 4. There will be extra support in here that will come across, that will span the entire hulls, and the same thing with bulkhead number 2. So that's kind of an explanation. It's been a while since I've posted a video, so I think I'm going to go ahead and get this video posted so you can see the progress. I think it's been almost a month now. I've been hard at work on getting this starboard hull to the same level of completion as the port hull, and once I do, I think I'm going to stand both hulls up and maybe put them a bit diagonal on the build platform, and that might even free up some extra room here in the garage. And at the same time, I think I should be able to clamp the two hulls together. So what I mean is, if they're both standing up, I can put the flat sides up against one another and put a clamp to hold them together, and that should help to stabilize it, because I've been worried about somebody tripping and bumping up against this hull, and then the whole hull goes crashing over. So I want to try to prevent that by getting, kind of like how you would hook a shelf up to a wall so that nobody can pull it down on top of themselves. I'm worried about these hulls tipping over until they're connected with the beams and the deck planking and so on. So, alright, well, I think that's enough for this video. I hope you enjoyed the progress, and I'll talk to you later when I have more progress to show you. Alright, bye.